What's up guys, my name is James Mulvaney. In this video, kind of a casual one today really, I wanted to talk about 3 business books that I read when I was younger, which I think really helped shape me as an entrepreneur and kind of inform some of the decisions that I've made over the past, say, 10 years. I've read obviously more than 3 books, but these are kind of like maybe my top 3 that I remember. Interestingly enough, I still read. I don't read as many books, and of course things have changed a bit over the past 10 years. Like, number one, there's a lot more books out there. Like, anyone can publish a book on anything to Amazon, whereas prior to sort of this, it was still very much just like authors wrote books. To get a book published, you had to go to a publishing company. Now anyone can self-publish. Of course, there's a lot more of a wealth of information out there when it comes to books, but not only that, I think also the internet's changed so much where, you know, you can find really good quality information for free on YouTube, on courses, you know, people just even writing like amazing detailed blog posts on different topics and matters. You don't need to learn business from books these days. I think you can learn business in other ways, I guess what I'm trying to say. Of course, books are still popular as they have ever been. You know, again, back then they didn't have Kindle or anything like that, so you couldn't read them digitally really. So I'm talking about actual paper books. I actually had a look to see if I could find these things. They probably look a bit dog-eared now, and I couldn't. I've got a feeling they might be in a box at the office or something, but obviously we're all working from home at the moment. Anyway, my top 3 business books are: number 1, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell; number 2, Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki; and number 3, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. So let's take a look at these 3 books and I'll give you my opinion on why you should read them and if they still got relevance in 2021. Okay, so firstly, let's start off with Blink. Now, Blink isn't necessarily a business book as per se. We're not talking about money. What we are talking about in Blink is unconscious decision making. And I think I've always been a very big firm believer of being able to follow your gut instinct. And I do feel like as an entrepreneur, you have to kind of develop, and sometimes you're just lucky. You feel like you've almost got this sort of sixth sense, which can help you carve your business, and it can help you carve your own objectives, your sort of motivation, if you like. And Blink is really just a study into this idea that sometimes decisions can be made in a long time. You know, you have to go through lots of processes to jump from A to B. And I certainly think this is the case on a lot of old school organizations, which is why they become so inefficient. And at the time I was launching my business, you know, I was running an internet company. I was doing things very differently to how a lot of my business teachers were trying to tell me to do. And I kind of felt like, you know, actually, I didn't need to overthink things. I could make snap impulse decisions and know that things would work out. And I think this is why Blink appealed to me so much. Interestingly, the book, I remember very clearly, started out talking about relationships, and it was talking about how, you know, there was some scientist that they could sit down with a couple in a room and they could decide very quickly whether or not this couple would last. A relationship would last a long time, or if it would probably be over within the next, you know, couple of years or few months. And one of the things that sort of amazed me about this is the success ratio. They had almost developed a system of predicting the outcomes, and they were very, very, very good at it. How does that apply to business? Well, I don't quite know, but I think really the purpose of the book is to sort of just talk about this sort of unconscious decision-making ability that we have as human beings. And I think this is kind of information that's really timeless. I don't think this book has aged. I think you could quite happily read it now and get as much value from it now than back in like the late 2000s when I probably read it, like 2008, 2009, perhaps around then. So would I recommend Blink? Yeah, go and buy that. I think you can really learn a lot about your own sort of unconscious, and sometimes it can help really just kind of give you that reassurance perhaps that you need. Like, some people tend to overthink things. Maybe I used to be one of those people, and I think maybe this kind of helped me overcome that. So the second book I wanted to talk about is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I think I've said that right, Kiyosaki. Anyway, 2 things about this, right? Firstly, yes, it's a really great book. It kind of teaches you the principles of building wealth that they don't teach in schools. Part of the problem with education is In school, you might learn maths, yeah, which is great, but you don't learn about things like getting a mortgage or getting credit card debt, or running the risk of running up debt on store cars, or any of this kind of dangerous stuff that can really have a big impact on your ability to get wealthy or not get wealthy. And also, you don't really learn about the idea of accumulating assets in school. I kind of talked a little bit more about this in another video. I'll put a link up here, which is how to make your first million. Really worth watching if you haven't seen that already. But I think Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of gives you this education in a really simple and easy to read, sort of easy to digest form factor, which is just basically the concept of, once you're making money, you need to then acquire assets. And these assets will appreciate over time, which you can use to sell to make more money, but also the fact that you've got these assets that are sort of self-sustaining. And it's really, really focused in on property development. I'm in a fortunate position now where I've got a few properties. I don't have a huge property portfolio or anything like that. My main source of income is still always going to be my actual businesses. But I certainly think, when you're thinking long-term, investing is so important, and a lot of people don't start investing until a bit later in life. I probably started investing when I was like 25, and I'm in my early 30s now. So, I've only got 5 years of investment behind me, but it's already been hugely beneficial. And I think this book was probably one of the catalysts that caused me to start thinking, okay, I've got my business, that's fine, that's making me my revenue, that's making money, it's making profit. However, there's no point of then going and like living it up and spending all this money on flash cars or fancy houses, or just going out and spending it on like big bottles of champagne. Which is funny because these days it seems to be that's all that influencers do. They get a little bit of money and then suddenly they just blow it on crap, which I find astonishing. But anyway, I think Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of gives you that grounding in the sense that you've got to treat money seriously, but also just leaving money in the bank isn't necessarily that helpful. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think, is a book that I'd still recommend today. The other story I was going to tell you about Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I don't really understand, was that I understand they've obviously kind of turned it into this brand. It started out as a book and it turned into the brand. From this brand, they've obviously got this big global thing now where they have seminars and people doing training, all this kind of stuff. And I remember this was when I was still at university. So I went to a university, a small town called Huddersfield, which is kind of in the middle of between where I am now, which is Manchester, and another city called Leeds. And I think on the back of the book there was like, come join our mailing list. So I signed up to a mailing list, and I remember being invited to Leeds, to this city called Leeds, to go to this seminar with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, oh my God, this guy is going to be there and holding a seminar. Of course, you get to the seminar, this guy is not there, but it was kind of like this outsourced, I don't know, sort of training dude. And I just got a very, 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 what's the right word I'm looking for? I mean, for lack of a better phrase, I got a scammy vibe from this seminar. A lot of the people there were like in their sort of 50s, 60s, 70s. I felt like this seminar was just one giant sales pitch. And they obviously were then trying to sell you another training event, which was really talking about, how to buy property, for below market value and all this other stuff. And I kind of just felt like the sort of audience that was there weren't like me. They weren't young people. They were people who were either leading up to retirement or retired. And I always think when there's seminars or there's companies trying to extract money from this demographic that they know have got money, it's always a little bit shady. Now, I'm not trying to knock. I don't want to sort of say this is a scam or anything. I'm sure the training they provide is brilliant. But it kind of just took my, I suppose, my respect of this book down a few notches when I realised that actually, off the back of this, they were running this global training organisation with seminars up and down every country. And it made me sort of question the integrity of it a little bit, I guess. I don't know what they're doing now, to be honest with you. I say I got a tremendous amount of value from the book. I went to that seminar and thought, there's no way I'm giving you any more of my money. That was just my perspective, but I certainly think a lot of the people there are really getting reeled in. But who knows how it's operating now. But that was just like one of my personal experiences. Thirdly, I want to talk about The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Now, Tim Ferriss, this was his first book, and I kind of think this kind of almost catapulted him into sort of influencer stardom, online sort of fame. It's funny because, again, when this was released, I've got a feeling it was like 2008, 2009 perhaps. I think I might have read it in 2010. And the concept of the book is really simple. It's, you don't have to be working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 in order to build an internet business. You could do a few things. You could test to see that there's money in the market. You can outsource or offload many of the parts of running an online business, set up a simple website, and use paid traffic to drive visitors to that website who will then purchase a product or service. And the idea of it was that you kind of would create this thing that would generate revenue whilst you traveled around, sat on a laptop on the beach, went around Thailand or whatever. Now, this book in itself I found very inspirational. I think his experience of running this kind of business was perhaps a few years before that the book was actually released. So by this point in time, in like the late 2000s, Google AdWords were a lot more expensive than they were in, say, like the early to mid 2000s. So all this kind of idea of like getting penny clicks or penny traffic was kind of out the window. You needed to spend a lot more on clicks, as is still the case today, if not even more so today as well. But this concept of actually working like 4 hours in a week, I don't think really was necessarily true then. It might have worked for him. I certainly think what I did learn from the book, which I transferred into my business, was don't do everything yourself, all right? As an entrepreneur, once you've got a business and it's generating revenue, the next step is to figure out what parts of that business is taking up most of your time, but not actually really growing the business anymore or really responsible directly for generating revenue. And it's about then saying, let's offload that to somebody else. Now, that could be a freelance worker on the other side of the world, which is kind of what he was suggesting. Or it could simply be having a member of staff who does that task or is assigned to do that task for you. And then the next phase is actually hiring staff or freelancers who could do stuff better than you, which is when it starts to get really exciting. Because you could maybe, as I say, to begin with, you might be managing your own AdWords on Google, but actually that is a skill in itself. So if you then hire an external company to manage your AdWords, or you take on a member of staff whose job it is to do that, perhaps a marketing manager or someone to do your SEO, or it might be someone to write code, a computer programmer, and hiring a team of people who will actually be able to excel at whatever task it is you're setting, that maybe you're doing yourself currently and doing an okay job, but actually getting them to do a really, really good job and, sort of take things to the next level. I think that's what I got from that book. I don't think the idea of working 4 hours a week was really relevant, because actually I liked working. I still work way more than 4 hours a week. And I certainly think as well, to kind of grow and cultivate a team, and if you want to really generate a substantial business, you need to be there working and sort of nurturing it. And I think just giving it 4 hours a week is I think it's almost like, sure, you could scrape by a living, by doing as little as possible. I'm pretty sure if I wanted to now go out and like live the beach lifestyle with a laptop and just, I don't know, make a few $1,000s a month, you could probably work 4 hours a week. I think if you want to generate or build a serious business, it's probably not very likely that that's going to happen. So, and as I say, I think some of the concepts now in that book are probably outdated. I don't know if he's updated it since then. He might well have done. I know Tim Ferriss has obviously gone on to write lots of other books, The 4 Hour Body, and he's kind of become this sort of guru online. He built a fantastic brand. And again, I think actually, there's so many people write books now claiming that they're Amazon #1 bestsellers. I mean, Jesus, even I've got a book which was an Amazon #1 bestseller, but I don't really brag about it, to be honest, because I couldn't care less. But I think it's just funny how, perhaps looking at actually what Tim has done and how he's used this to grow his brand is probably maybe more of a valuable business lesson than like reading about whatever sort of brain training pills that he was selling on the internet. I can't even remember. It was some kind of supplement that you take which would give you more memory or some shit like that. I don't know what it was, but that was his business anyway. And like, undoubtedly by the time he'd released this book, there was probably like a gazillion competitors in that market anyway. So whether or not you could duplicate his results and get the same response, I don't know. But 4 Hour Work Week, I remember having a big impact on me, And perhaps some of the lessons I took from it weren't just necessarily the obvious of what the book was talking about, but it was like how it launched his brand, and also sort of the idea of actually, sort of starting to grow your team, and maybe saying, yeah, as a solo entrepreneur, you can get so far, but then to take things to the next level, you need to leverage other people's skills, or freelancers, whether that's hiring members of staff or working with external companies to sort of help your business accelerate, help it grow. So there we have it. Those are the 3 business books that I read 10 years ago. My perspective on, are they still relevant now? And, do I think you should go and get these books? Yeah, why not? They're all good books. Interestingly, most of my information now I kind of just get from around the internet. I don't go out and buy as many books as perhaps I once used to. I think when I was in my sort of like late teens, early 20s, I read a lot of books. There's loads and loads of others that I haven't mentioned. I kind of wanted to sort of drill it down to 3 that I really remember had kind of a significant impact on how I thought about business. So yeah, thanks for watching this video. If you found it useful, remember to give it a thumbs up, you know the drill. And then also, if you want more videos like this, subscribe if you like. You can do that. And I'll speak to you soon. Have a great day. Bye for now. Hey, before you go anywhere, I have a quick question for you. Do you have a podcast? And if you do you want to book more interesting, high-profile guests on your show? Well, if you answered yes to either of these questions, I'd love to invite you to come and join our community over at matchmaker.fm. Matchmaker is a service that connects awesome podcasts just like yours with incredible and high-profile guests that make for really interesting conversations. It's really straightforward to get started and completely free to sign up. Just connect using your LinkedIn, Facebook, or Google account, and then you can begin connecting with guests based on their area of expertise, location, and much more. If you haven't checked it out already, go to matchmaker.fm, get started. It's just like Tinder, but for podcasters.